I made a video called Akaraka Explained, and in this video I asked you guys if you believe in fate. Are the events of life predetermined, or the events of the universe on a bigger scale? I tallied up all of the votes because I said that if we can get, I think it was 100 responses, I'll give an answer, and whatever the number was, we definitely passed it. So at the end of the video, I'll let you guys know how everybody voted. Now, if the question is, do you believe in fate, or the events of the world predetermined? My answer is yes. If the world is run by the laws of cause and effect, then everything in the universe is predetermined. You can predict the effect by understanding everything that goes into the cause. And this allows us to live in a world governed by mathematics, a mathematically measurable world. And if the world is governed by math, then the world is predetermined. Now, my own view of this is in alignment with the ancestral ilu that says, "O Bruna, ihoka woke na buegu nelu mmiri, enwere onye na-egu egu n'okpuru ya." If you see a man dancing on top of water, there's somebody playing music below. Before I go into my explanation, the best way to support the channel is by joining our Patreon community at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. If you like discussing topics like this, we have a group discussion on Zoom twice a month where we go back and forth and share our views on different topics that are similar to this. So if this is right up your alley, I'd love to hear what you have to say on the different topics we cover and share what our ancestors have to say on them as well at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. And patrons also have full access to my in-house library that has hundreds of books, articles, and documents explaining and teaching Igbo spirituality, or Odinani Ndibo. And with that being said, let's begin. Predetermination is the relationship between cause and effect. It is the fact that 1 + 1 has an answer, even when you're not observing or calculating it. The answer exists beyond time and space, and every time you add 1 + 1, that answer is what you'll see. If I push a marble to the left, the marble goes left. If I push it to the right, it goes right. If I have 2 marbles and I push one left and I see what happens, I can predict what will happen if I push another one right. And this is the nature of a mathematical universe. And mathematics is predetermination. The universe is a chain of cause and effect, with everything you see having a reason for being what it is, and that reason being affected by other reasons which are affected by other reasons. And the most recent effect in the chain will also affect other things, becoming a cause unto itself, continuing the chain and so forth. And this cause and effect chain can be traced all the way back to an original source, or maybe even original sources. And by understanding that original source, we could actually predict or know what was going to happen at the end of the cause and effect chain, if there is an end. Because that effect is fated to reflect the nature of the cause, the way the ball is fated to reflect the nature of my push, or the direction the ball moves in is fated to move in accordance to my push. And this is the nature of a mathematical universe, or a universe that math exists and can be observed in. But I think the thing that throws us off sometimes is the uncountable amount of things in play. Yes, there's cause and effect, but the universe itself is this enormous web of unfathomable amounts of cause and effect, things affecting each other, becoming new causes for each other, and so on and so forth, on a scale that I don't believe human beings will ever have the capacity to comprehend. So when the amount of calculations we have to do becomes hard to comprehend, we call it randomness or chaos. These are labels that we use to say, I don't know, or I don't know all the factors and therefore can't calculate what this is, or the complexity of these events overwhelms my capacity or willingness to calculate it. But complex equations and simple equations are both math. And no matter how complicated the cause and effect web is that we call the universe, it's still a mathematical equation. And all equations have fated and predetermined answers. These predetermined answers are the automatic reflection of the inputs, or the cause. And this is how the universe is. Every atom is something affecting something else because it was affected by something else. And then the elements within the single atom are also affecting each other because they were affected by something else, as well as elements that we are not even aware of, or factors of the universe that we're not yet aware of their existing, are all operating on this principle. So in order for us to understand the equation that is Ogodakamosu, the blanket of creation, we would have to be able to calculate all of those factors, and we can't. And so it looks like chaos, and we call it randomness. But of course, it's not. There's an ilu that says, whenever the moon comes, it shines. This ilu goes into saying that the elements of nature will always reflect their nature, right? So we can see, at least in the things that we call inanimate or non-living, that yes, when there is cause, there is an effect, and so on and so forth. But my theory does run into this final boss, which is human free will, or the free will of the living. Now, the existence of free will, does it change my answer? Do I believe in fate even though there is human free will? Yes, I still believe in fate, even though there is allegedly human free will. Now, let me explain. The concept of free will says that the things we consider living can act independent of being acted on. For humans, the idea is that consciousness is not governed by cause and effect alone, but it is itself its own governor. And that in fact, human free will or human consciousness is a cause that creates effect more than it is an effect of causes, if that makes sense. So human beings aren't paper swirling in a tornado, for example. We have thought and decisions that we choose simply by force of will. So if you push a ball to the left, it moves left. But if you push a human being to the left, they might, move left or decide to fight back and stand their ground. Now, free will is a funny thing because if you really look at it, the big idea is that only humans have it. Now, other things have pieces of it, but it diminishes the further you are from being human. So a dog has more free will than a tree, and a tree has more free will than a blob of algae. And most people will even think you're doing too much by saying the last three, the dog, the tree, and the algae, have free will. Even the dog. Some people will say that a dog doesn't have free will, that it's driven by subconscious instincts and impulses that it can't control because it's a dog. But this whole concept's been debunked, and sometimes when you repeat it out loud, it sounds kind of ridiculous, but scientifically, it doesn't really stand anymore. Multiple experiments have confirmed that human beings actually don't make decisions with their conscious mind. And one experiment in particular pointed out the fact that decisions are made by the part of the mind that controls other unconscious parts of the body, such as the instinct to produce more saliva when you see good food. In 2008, there was a study called The Unconscious Determinants of Free Decisions in the Human Brain. The study confirmed that before our decisions enter the conscious portions of our brain, there are parallel activities that happen 10 seconds ahead of it in parts of our brain that are associated with unconscious behavior, and that what ends up happening in the conscious parts of our mind is an echo of a decision that's already been made 10 seconds ago. The decisions we make are almost like an echo of what has already happened in the subconscious. And by the time it reaches the prefrontal cortex, all that really happens is that we receive the sensation of choosing or the illusion of choosing. But the choice always reflects what happened 10 seconds prior. Which is really funny because in Nietzsche, our ancestors believe that anything that's happening in Mado, or the world of the living, has already happened in Mo, in spirit. Now, in this study, researchers asked participants to press one of two buttons while strapping the participants up to an fMRI machine to see their brain activity. The brain activity differed based on which button they pressed. And at the end of the experiment, this is what they saw. Activity in the subconscious portions of the brain matched activity in the conscious portions of the brain. But the unconscious parts of the brain made the decision on average 10 seconds before the conscious side decided what button to press. This means that the researchers were able to predict the decisions that the subjects will make before the subjects even made it. Now you can say that, well, if one part of my brain made the decision and the other echoes it, it's still my brain making that decision. But be aware that there's a part of your brain that decides when you're going to stop growing. And you can hardly attribute this feature of the brain to human free will. But even beyond, trying to be too clinical about the situation, it's pretty obvious that time, age, health, environment, and other things have a lot of say in the decisions that you make, a lot more than we give it credit for. The types of minerals your body has abundance of or lacks pushes your marble in one direction or another. So if you have an iron deficiency, for example, you're more likely to make apathetic decisions. But your conscious part of your mind will just convince you that that's you making that decision. Oh, I'm just kind of a whatever guy, right? If you have a zinc deficiency, you make more aggressive decisions, right? But you might have a zinc deficiency and your prefrontal cortex just convince you, no, man, you're an alpha male, bro, and then from there you're swinging your frail ass bones at people, right? If you have an overload of manganese, you make aggressive decisions and you lean towards withdrawal, but your brain's going to convince you that you just kind of feel like being on your own right now. If you have a high beta wave frequency in your frontal cortex, you're going to lose the feeling of being in control of your actions, which happens a lot when you're drunk or under the influence of something. An uncountable amount of factors, internal and external, sun exposure, hormone levels, geography, culture, income, upbringing. All of these things are inputs and factors or causes that lead to an effect that is beyond your control, that is fated. And that effect sends you in one direction. That direction becomes a cause which sends you in another direction, and so on and so forth down the stream of time, all while having the warm feeling of being the one that's in control. These are all parts of the big equation that we call our conscious mind, because it's too complicated to call anything else. But its complexity does not mean it's not mathematical. And if it's mathematical, then it is abiding by the laws of cause and effect, which tells me that fate is a real thing. In a world governed by mathematics and cause and effect, it's almost impossible to believe that all things move in accordance to cause and effect, except for some reason humans. I mean, if you dig far into that theory, it's really certain types of humans, but we won't talk too much about that. But that's it. Let me know what you think, and let's finish this discussion on patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. As always, this is Derek Ofadarwa. Thank you.